Okay everybody, we're learning all about environmental science today. So come along with us as we talk to 3 graduates to learn more about the work they're doing and the impact they're making on the environment and the community. So Rachel, tell us a little bit about who you are and what we're doing here today.
Yeah, I'm Rachel Kuntz. I graduated from Auburn University, the College of Ag, with a degree in environmental science. I work with Goodwin Mills Kaywood, also known as GMC, a consulting firm over in Brunswick, Georgia, as an environmental scientist and project manager.
All right, so can we take a look at some of the projects that you've worked on over here?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. So Rachel, what does environmental science look like in consulting?
It can look like a vast range of things, but for my job, I would say I'm more focused on stormwater and water quality, and so we do a lot of watershed plans, coastal resiliency plans. We also do a lot of NPDES work, help clients meet their permit requirements, and we do a good bit of GI/LID, which is green infrastructure, low impact development.
So can we take a look at the project we're standing on right now?
Yeah, sure. So St. Mary's, Georgia, we approached this project to meet 2 needs. So St. Mary's had an issue with flooding, and still does. Being a coastal town, there's a lot of issues with low-lying topography leading to nuisance flooding. And also the St. Mary's River had documented and pending impairments, including dissolved oxygen. So we wanted to help meet some of the needs of the city to address both of those items of concern. So GMC helped design a treatment train of best management practices involving LID green infrastructure, which looks at engineered as natural ecosystems that use vegetation and soil to really facilitate infiltration, capture the stormwater, infiltrate, and facilitate evapotranspiration, which in turn really helps reduce the contaminants going back out into the river and reduces the flow to MS4 conveyance systems. So right here we have these interlocking concrete pavers. This was part of the practice. And what these systems do is it creates these gaps in between these concrete pavers that allows stormwater to infiltrate through pea gravel back into the groundwater supply or move through the subsurface region into a under drain, which then goes into the river. But during the process, all that gravel helps filter out pollutants, and so they are left behind while the water just goes back through.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So what about the vegetation? Did you use vegetation as well to help?
We did for the bioretention cells here. So there's about a little over 7,000 square feet of bioretention cells placed throughout this street and over by City Hall as well. And so those were highly engineered and designed structures where we use different layers of media and vegetation, which really helps capture and store for a temporary amount of time and help infiltrate the water, evapotranspirate. It kind of uses the same system, but it's just a different type of practice, demonstration practice. Yeah.
Can we look at that, like up close?
Yeah.
Okay. So Rachel, how do you monitor the project to make sure it's being effective?
Yeah, so we installed 14 of these monitoring wells throughout the treatment train. And one set of wells was the subsurface well and the other well was the surface level. So we would install these water level sensors in each of the wells, and I would come out once a month and download the data from each of them. And we also installed a barometric pressure sensor and a rain gauge tipping bucket so that we could take all the data that we collected each month from these wells and model the infiltration, exfiltration rates, and plot that against like the rain inflow and runoff that was coming into the system.
Oh, okay. So you're capturing how much is actually
how much is actually coming into the system and how much is infiltrating through the system.
And then do you look at like the pollutants that are in the system?
Yeah, we do actually. So that's another, we also monitored the water quality effectiveness as well. We would grab samples of runoff, a representative sample just straight from the street that would go into one of the storm drains, an MS4 storm drain. And we would also take these caps off and take water from the wells, the surface and the subsurface region of the wells, send them back to a lab. We tested them for total suspended solids, total nitrogen, and total phosphorus so that we could effectively show how well these systems are working at reducing pollutants.
Yeah, because it all affects what's going into the water
Exactly.
over there.
Yeah. Exactly.
There you go.
And we would take some samples from the St. Mary's River too.
Yeah.
So.
Cool.
So talking about the monitoring aspect of this project, since this project was funded by Georgia EPD through 319, through a 319 grant, we have to monitor all aspects of the project for at least a year. So we would monitor the effectiveness by downloading that sensor data, but we would also come out and take grab samples of the stormwater runoff so that we could compare it to the grab samples that we would take from our monitoring wells.
Okay.
So what we would do, since it's not storming right now, we're just gonna pretend. Yeah, so you can open that and you can come down with me. So what we'll do is our grab sample from stormwater runoff is we'll go to one of these MS4 inlets, and I would just bend down and stick my hand in, or we would get a pipe. It's very high tech. We would duct tape this to a pipe and stick the pipe down, like a PVC pipe.
Oh, wow, yeah.
To collect the stormwater.
Oh, okay. So you have to physically take off the grate.
No.
No.
No. I'm not falling in. So you just do some of this, some of this, and then you put it on ice.
Oh.
And then you take it to the lab to get
Why do you
sampled.
have to put it on ice?
Well, a couple of these have preservatives in them, and like the concentration of the pollutants will break down over time or transform into different types.
Keep it fresh.
Yeah, you want to keep it fresh.
So Rachel, tell us how your environmental science degree has kind of prepared you for this role.
Yeah, so I would say the classes that I took in my undergrad really helped build the foundational understanding of how biogeochemical processes interact with hydrology, and that's been really essential to being successful in the projects that I work on now. And I would also say that the undergraduate research fellowship that I did as an undergrad directly prepared me for working on projects such as this one with bioretention cells and monitoring their effectiveness.
Okay. So what drew you to environmental science? Why did you say, I want a career in that?
Animals. I like animals, and I didn't want to go the vet route, and I tried wildlife biology, and people over there are really great, beautiful school, but I wanted to help them more indirectly. Like, it's great, there's people out there that are doing that side, but I knew if I got into environmental science, I could help clean the water that they're drinking every day and help with land conversion and just making things more sustainable. And I really just, when I graduated, I didn't know exactly what I would be doing, but I knew that I was passionate about wanting to improve on management practices that occur today that were kind of inefficient and move it into more of a sustainable approach to better protecting and improving upon the just the overall nature of how we treat wildlife and water resources.
What advice do you have students wanting to get into environmental science, particularly the consulting side of the industry?
Yeah, well, in any side of the industry, I would definitely recommend brushing up on your writing skills and oral communication, because being able to communicate effectively both orally and written is a huge part to being successful in this industry. Because we might be environmental scientists, but if you can't speak or write about what you're doing to where other people can understand what we're doing and why we're doing it, it's going to be really hard to get funding to do what you want to do. And I'd also say if you want to do consulting, really look into the firms before you apply to know what their missions are, what type of projects they work on, and apply to ones that, that align with your interests and your values, and go get an internship with them, like any time of the year, not just summer internships. Like that would be the best bet for you to know if this is the right field for you, to know if you think that you can make it in the field, which I'm sure everybody can, but if you're going to be happy in the field, definitely go get experience and look into it beforehand.
Yeah, before you make that full-time commitment.
Yeah.
That's good advice.
And write well.
Yes. Yeah.
Most of my job is writing. Like 90% of my job is spent behind a computer, writing a variety of different types of documents, and using GIS as well. That would be super helpful. Yeah.
That's cool.
And do well in your classes, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Your sciences, turns out, are important, so. Who would have thought?
We talked a lot about science today.
Yeah. Well, this project in particular uses a lot of applied science, whereas a lot of the other projects that I manage aren't so much applied science, but it is a lot of coordination and working with people, so that's where the communication bit comes into play.
Yeah, because you're working a lot with the community and people that don't have your backgrounds. Or
Exactly, yeah.
them.
Right, so they hire us to come in as experts to fix these problems for them or to manage their permit requirements for them, and they're trusting us and paying us to get it done correctly and efficiently. So, yeah,
Well, cool.
happy to help.
Yeah. Well, thanks for letting us see a little bit of what you do. Chad with Coosa River Keepers, and Chad, tell us a little bit about who you are and where we're at today, and a little bit about Coosa River Keepers.
Yeah, so like she said, I'm Chad Hoffman. I'm the program director at Coosa River Keeper. We're out on Logan Martin Lake today. We're doing some algae monitoring. So Coosa River Keeper's mission is to protect, promote, and restore the Coosa River and its tributaries. So one thing that we like to say is a river has a head and a mouth, but no voice to speak for itself. So that's kind of where we come in.
Coosa River Keeper was founded in 2010 after it was named the 10th most endangered river in the nation at the time. And that was mainly due to the hydropower dams that run up and down the Coosa River system and the way that changed the ecology of the river. So once they dammed the river they used to say was so wide when it flooded it would touch like every farm in the state. I mean, the river used to be this massive shoaly bottom river system, but when the power company started to dam it, it essentially changed the ecology to a very silty, some people might call it mucky bottom of our lakes. And so when that happened, we lost over 40 species of critters. Not necessarily the critters that people probably have stuffed animals of, but the critters that really matter to water quality. So our organization was founded to speak for the river when it comes to decisions that impact not just water quality, but also the people that rely on the river for food as well as for fun. So our mission is to protect, restore, and promote the Coosa River and its tributaries here in Alabama. And I am really happy to be here today with you.
So we're gonna go up and probably go kind of fast for a minute because we have a lot of sampling to do and not a lot of time. But it's going to be really beautiful because this section of Logan Martin actually feels like a river. So we're going to get to the lower ends, and it's very similar to like Lake Martin where it's like this massive swath of water. But up here it gets pretty skinny. So I'm excited to share it with you all.
Lucas, I think we're going to have a place up here on the right, and on the left. You might want to come take a look.
So we kickstarted our algae monitoring program this summer because although the EPA issues guidelines and criteria they recommend our state agencies follow for nutrients, our state agencies do not follow those nutrient criteria. So we are out collecting algae samples, and we have made it part of our swim guide program, which is our summer bacteria monitoring program. Our interns are also collecting algae samples out in the reservoirs where they collect. And we have also spent part of this summer with Lucas collecting algae samples in kind of like intensives. So we spent a whole day out at Lake Mitchell collecting 14 or 15 algae samples throughout the entire reservoir, and we're just kind of collecting data and keeping an eye out for harmful algal blooms. And so that we have that data, so that when something does happen, we're partnered with a lab in Auburn, Dr. Wilson's lab, and we have someone that we can get in touch with and know how to handle that situation and get him samples and go from there.
So talk us through the process. So a citizen finds a problem, they contact you, and then how does that work? Or are you guys out looking for problems? How does that really work?
So it's a little bit of both. So we do get a lot of citizen complaints, and we get them through Facebook, we get them through Instagram, we get them through our website, we get them through people texting Justin. And I think just this year we've had well over 100 already, and those are all kind of case by case. Sometimes we'll kind of, depending on what the scenario is, sometimes we'll help people by reaching out to the state agency on their behalf who would be over that issue that is happening. Other times we'll help them figure out how to reach out to the state agency, and then they'll know from there how they can do it themselves or how they can help their neighbors do it in the future. Other times when it's a larger issue, it can take working with the whole community and trying to help them figure out how they can all empower themselves to tackle an obstacle. And that's a really cool thing when it comes together, especially when you've got so many people who are all looking out for their best interests together, because a lot of times it can feel like the state or even the federal government, sometimes it doesn't feel like they have the people's best interest at heart. So that's what I think is a really cool position to be in, is just helping people figure out how can we help ourselves, how can we help our neighbors.
So I guess, Chad, tell us how you specifically got here. Tell us about how your degree maybe has prepared you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Dr. Brantley actually helped me get my first job out of Auburn, and it was great, and I'm really thankful for the opportunity, but I spent a year kind of feeling like I wanted to be more creative and I wanted less walls around me. I was in a cubicle in the back of a warehouse with no windows. And so I'd spent some time out west and learned to kind of all these communities that really appreciate their natural resources around them. And then I started to find that in Alabama too. There's so many people here who really care about all of these beautiful things in our state that I feel like our state doesn't get a ton of credit for. And so I learned about Coosa Riverkeeper and just started volunteering. And through that, also learned about Cahaba Riverkeeper and Black Warrior Riverkeeper. And then all of the other folks in the state, it just kind of went from there. And so after that, that really helped kind of paint the picture of like, this actually can be a career, and it can give me the opportunity to be creative, whether that's with a camera or whether that's out in the field or whether that's planning a new program and trying something new. But it also really made me feel like it all mattered too. And so I just started pursuing that. I kind of even bounced around jobs for a little bit and just continued to volunteer until the right opportunity came up. And I'm really thankful for it.
So for me, when I was an undergrad, I had really horrible internships. I was either like the person that people would have file stuff, or no one ever asked me what I wanted to learn. I was just like there to like heavy breathe and take up space. So I decided when I was given the opportunity to lead this organization that I really wanted to give interns the opportunity to hone a skill. So I think if you're in an undergrad and you don't know what you want to be when you grow up, number one, I think a lot of people feel that way even when they're quote unquote grown up. But number two, I think it's important to use your time for internships so you can figure out what kind of work culture is important to you. So you can figure out what matters to you from a value set, but also to get hands-on experience. Because oftentimes in the classroom, unless you are in a service learning environment or have some sort of experiential experience, then like you don't really know, you're hearing about it on paper without actually going out and doing the field work. So I am a huge proponent of bringing in students from all backgrounds into our organization because it takes an interdisciplinary approach to solve these systemic issues. So whether you're a business major, marketing major, public health, environmental science, there's a place for you in an organization like Coosa Riverkeeper, because we need the people to help make the graphics so that we can translate science to anyone of any background or any literacy level. So I think interning is a critical matter when it comes to what I look for in hiring people. If they have volunteer experience or internship, that gives me a sense of that person is committed to do the work, especially when there's not necessarily a monetary add value. But also I think it's really important when you're thinking about a career path about, like, do you want to be sedentary? I don't think a lot of people think about that. Like, do you want to sit in front of a computer all day? Do you need to have the organized chaos? And like, I need organized chaos, so that's why I'm here. And I think that's also one thing I try to instill in my team, is that to do this work, it isn't, the science is the foundation of how we tell people where it's safe to swim or not, or where they should eat the fish or not, but the communication is the only way we're going to be successful in protecting this river and the people who use it. Because if I can't explain to you why nutrients are bad, or why swimming in E. coli is bad, then like the science isn't going to affect you unless it means something to how you use the river. So that's why I think getting folks out on the water is the best way to create a relationship with a space, is to experience it.
A lot of environmental science students are going to see this film. What piece of advice can you give to them?
It can be really easy to feel like you're in a box sometimes. I think when I started environmental science, I really felt like my options were consulting or something with the National Park Service. And both of those excited me at the time because I didn't know what they would be like. I was only taking classes. And I wasn't the best student either. I didn't have great test grades, but I was at every class and I spoke with my professors. I had great relationships with my professors, especially the ones in the environmental science department. And they know I cared, and I cared about what they were teaching, and they were always willing to help me. And they kind of helped me see other opportunities also outside of consulting, outside of being a park ranger somewhere, which are great things, and I know a lot of people who really love those. But their support helped me feel safe about pursuing something that I wanted to do. And everyone was always supportive until I found what I wanted to do. And the support hasn't stopped from there.
So Jessie, tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
Yeah, so my name is Jessie Curl, and I am an Extension Water Program Coordinator with the Auburn University Water Resources Center. So what that means is I work on some of our extension programming, specifically the Alabama Private Well Program, which I'm excited to tell you all about today.
So tell me about the Alabama Private Well Program.
Okay, so we actually Extension started this program in 2020 to be a resource for domestic well users in our state. So what that means is these people are using a home water supply that pumps groundwater directly into their home. So at the heart of Extension is our innovative programming that we use to serve our community members, and we really try to address any needs and answer questions that our citizens in our state may have. So we had a lot of people that were expressing interest in getting their well water tested. They needed to get it treated. They just really needed a contact to be able to help them navigate through some of the issues or questions that they were having about their own home water supply. So the difference between a private well supply and maybe a city water supply is that with a city water supply, we can rest assured knowing that our water is being treated and maintained and tested, and that they're following within the EPA recommendations for safe drinking water quality. But with a homeowner, that responsibility falls onto them. So it can be pretty overwhelming to be responsible for the testing, maintenance, and treatment of your own home water supply on top of, I'm sure, another job.
Okay, so then the homeowner comes to you and says, hey, I want to get my well water tested, and then what are the steps that they do?
Okay, so I get questions all the time about where can I get my well water tested, what is a good maintenance schedule to follow for my well, even I would like to drill a well, can you point me in the direction of some certified well drillers in our state? So I'll answer their questions, I'll help link them up with a certified laboratory. or the Alabama Department of Public Health if they want to do a bacteria test on their well water supply. So we really are a resource hub for these well owners to go and get the information that they need to help address some of the concerns that they may have.
So Jesse, you dropped some water samples off the other day.
Yes, so we actually have a really great partnership with Dr. Camila Rodriguez at Auburn University, and we actually use her lab, and Zoila, a PhD student, helps us run our water samples from our well owners.
All right, can we take a look at the lab?
Yeah. So what we're doing now is we're going to take this coal alert media that is an EPA approved method for coliform detection in drinking water supplies, and we'll add it directly to that water sample that those homeowners provided.
Okay. And how long does it take to react?
It usually takes 24 hours. So basically, this media, what it has, it's all the nutrients that the bacteria needs to for it to grow. So we need to dissolve that media in the water. And then after that, we're going to place this for 24 hours in the incubator at 37 degrees Celsius. And then actually I have some samples here. And so this media, it's going to tell us if there's E. coli in the water and if there is coliforms. So for example, this water, you can see it's clear. So it means that there's no coliforms in the water, but this one has more coliforms. And we use this other bottle that it's going to help us to compare. This is like the standard.
Okay.
So if the water is like this color or even more, then it means that there's coliforms in the water. So you can compare these two, and there's definitely coliforms in the water. And then, if you compare these two, this one is very clear, so there's no coliforms in the water. And then, to identify if there is E. coli in the water, we're going to put these samples under the UV light.
So you can see here that this bottle it's fluorescent.
Yeah.
So it means that there's E. coli in the water. With this method, we're not quantifying. We just know if there's presence or absence of the bacteria.
Okay.
So yeah, you can see that.
Yeah. So now that you know that, what's the next step?
So now that we know that, I'm going to send the results to the homeowners that we were able to meet and walk through some potential treatment strategies with them.
Yeah. So you send them an email, say, or call them and walk them through the steps of how to fix the problem.
Yes. So often I'll recommend that they get a second follow-up test just to confirm the presence, or if they decide to shock chlorinate first, to retest again in a couple of weeks and see if the problem's gone away.
So when they bring you the samples, where's that water coming from? Like directly the well or straight from the home? Or
So it can be from either. It depends on where the homeowner takes the sample. Taking it from the well itself is a more representative sample because it tells us exactly what's in the actual water supply, whereas once it enters the home and goes through the tap, we have the risk of secondary contamination from the actual faucet itself.
Oh, okay. So what drew you to working with water?
Well, water is everywhere. Yeah. If you didn't know, we have 132,000 miles of rivers and streams in our state, and that is just outstanding. And I was really drawn to the Extension Water program because we work directly with the community and we help people get engaged with their water resources. So not only drinking water, but surface water too. And I think I found my calling here, and I get to wake up every day and say, I love my job.
Yeah, that's really great. It's great to see you like loving your job. So you graduated from Auburn with an environmental science degree. So tell me about that and how you're tying that degree into what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I graduated in 2020, like you mentioned, with a degree in environmental science, and I cannot say enough about that program. I think that the interdisciplinary nature of that degree and the fact that I was able to tailor my courses based on what I found most interesting really did help me succeed in what I'm doing right now. I think that the flexibility that comes with the environmental science program has been instrumental in helping me become the statewide contact for this Alabama private well program, because I could take classes in water, I could take classes in soil sciences if I wanted to, and I really do think that that helped me at least get a wide understanding of what I was going to be working with and have a nice comprehensive framework to work from in my future.
So what did you do at Auburn that kind of helped set you up for this role?
I think that being heavily involved in different clubs and undergraduate working and research experiences was most impactful for me. It allowed me to meet so many people, and that's honestly another thing that I love about Extension is that I get to meet new people all the time, and it's great. It's like I have friends all across the state, and all we want to do is help the citizens of Alabama to be able to live a better life. So for me, I think having those experiences as an undergraduate student, being able to work in the student services office, meet a bunch of professors, and be active in clubs really was the key for me.
So as for students in the environmental science program, how can they get involved in Extension and what you're doing?
So Extension does have some internships, and I always recommend that undergraduates try to at least look for undergraduate research opportunities, undergraduate lab experience, or even internships. And that's a really great way to get your feet on the ground and try to get started into a career that may interest you. And it looks really great on a resume.